Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Hello, this is Wayne Bennett, Wayne Bennett's podcast, and this is episode number 62. And our guest today is the longtime YMCA director and the Kill Scythe killer, Bob Bolen. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Wayne.
And you actually did grow up in Kill Scythe, didn't you?
I did.
Was your dad a coal miner?
No, my dad was killed in World War II.
Oh, really?
And I didn't know him.
Now, Kill Scythe was a mining town, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Right up.
Yes.
It actually combined with Mount Hope, and back in those days, Mount Hope and Mullins and Hinton and all those places were busting. I mean, wide open, weren't they, as far as people?
We only had one player, William Burse, from the city limits of Mount Hope, that started on the football team.
Really? The rest of them was from out. Now, you lived there before the bypass was built, weren't you?
Right.
At Mount Hope.
Right.
So Kill Scythe they actually took some houses, didn't they, when they built the bypass?
Yes. They probably took two houses off the front. Kill Scythe.
Now, when did you first start playing ball? I mean, as far as organized ball, how old were you?
I was a junior in high school.
Really?
Organized ball. Now, they had a little league, and Babe Ruth. They had Babe Ruth League in Mount Hope, and I did play some baseball earlier. But I didn't play football or basketball until my junior year.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, I know you talked about you delivered papers when you were 8 years old, yes. And going out early in the morning and not even big enough to carry a bag almost.
7 days a week, and when I put the paper bag over my neck, the bag drug the ground.
Wow. So, and how many customers did you have?
I end up with 88. I started out with about 40.
Wow.
And I kind of grew the route. And as time went by, I delivered with 5 years.
Well, back during that time, though, we didn't have the media that we have now, and people depended on the newspaper to get the news, with the radio. A lot of people didn't have televisions. I don't know whether anybody in Kill Scythe had any TVs at that time, but...
Wayne, as a kid, we sat and watched the test pattern for hours at a time.
Really?
That was our TV. We thought that was great. Then we'd say, "Oh, it moved."
Well, I know Ted Spadero, who's a little younger than you. He also delivered papers. He told me one time he thought he had about 95 customers, mm-hmm. And so it was. Like I said, most everybody took a newspaper back then because that was the only news they would get, and they trusted. Now, you didn't start till you was a junior. Now, you went out for football first. Blaine Tanner was a football coach, wasn't he?
Yes, it was.
And now, is that John Tanner's family?
Yes.
Is that his brother?
It's his brother, yes.
And I know there was Ed and John and Blaine, and I don't know how many.
Good bunch of guys. I mean, and Blaine Tanner was a great coach, and Jack Shockey was his assistant coach, and Jack was from Fayetteville, and he was sixth man on West Virginia's basketball team when Jerry West played.
And he was a basketball coach too, wasn't he, at Mount Hope?
He was my basketball coach.
Who was the track coach?
Well, Blaine Tanner was because of football.
Yeah.
And you had to go out for track if you was going to play football.
Yeah.
And we had a real good track team. And Gene Spadero came on after Blaine Tanner. He did it because he used it for football. That's why we were good in football.
Well, I know back when I was in high school, Mount Hope was loaded. They'd win the single way or double way track all the time, and that's when Spadero was coaching full time. And of course, he was always a pole vault guy. He could teach the pole vault. Now the mines around Kill Scythe, I guess it was the Siltex mines when everybody worked.
Oswald, and I think it was New River Coal Company. I could be wrong. Siltex was still going, but it was at the end. I think they had an accident, and it kind of closed the mines down.
Yeah.
But Siltex was right there as you go into Mount Hope.
Yeah.
And but I think New River Coal Company owned it, Wayne. I'm not sure about that.
During that time, like people don't understand, to get to Oak Hill, you had to drive a 2-lane down through Bradley, go through downtown Mount Hope, and then up through Scarborough and Hilltop. You know, there was no 4-lane for Route 19. There was no bypass, and so going from Hinton to Mount Hope to Hinton was a trip. And Mount Hope to Mullins that was a trip.
It was.
People don't understand either how long it would take you to go at that time. And all those schools like that had good football teams. You guys in 1959, actually Mullins beat you in the regular season.
Right.
But you both were ranked high enough that you made, back then only 2 teams made the playoffs, didn't they?
That's right.
And you had to play Mullins in the state championship.
In the Mud Bowl.
That was at Van Meter Stadium.
Oh, yes. It was muddy. You couldn't hardly move. And I think that's why the score ended up the way it did, 0-0.
Yeah.
Nobody could really do anything. And Mullins had some good speed, and it hurt them a lot. We was more of a power team with Sam Warwick.
Yeah.
Running the ball.
Yeah, Mullins had some guys like Sid Elliott and Willie Milam and Charlie Stump and Butch Cart. They were some tough guys, man.
I know them all. I used to go down in the summertime and stay with my stepdad. He worked down there. And I'd play basketball with all of them during the summer. And I knew them all quite well, and they were really good. Sid Elliott went to University of Tennessee, where I went, and he was captain of the basketball team.
Really?
Down at University of Tennessee. Sid was pretty tall. He was probably 6'7", 6'8", and that was a big man back then.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, your first inclination to play was as a junior, and so some of these guys have been on the team for a couple of years. What position did you play in football?
Well, at first I started out running back, and I was mainly blocking for Sam Warwick. And I got my left shoulder hurt, and they moved me to right guard. And I started rest of the year at right guard and played defensive back, because I was one of the fastest on the team. And I had 155 pounds of playing right guard and defensive back. And we only had 14 guys on that state football team. That we were co-champions. I like to say champions, and because we were. And so was Mullins. And so that's a heck of a combination, right guard to defensive back.
Yeah, it's some of the guys that was on that team. Let me name a few of them. That of course, Ted Spadaro had mentioned him. He was a little younger, and there was William Payne, and then Marky O'Donnell. There was a Dana Halstead, Charles Lawson, Bull Burness, Jim Wells, John Mayo, Denny Chris, Coach Chris. Jerry Collier, I know Jerry, and Howard Griff was a pretty big boy.
He certainly was.
And and then also Payne, or Otha Payne, I don't know how you pronounce it. He was a pretty good athlete, but he wasn't as big as Howard Griffith. But that was a pretty tough bunch right there yourself. And so you in basketball, some of those same guys. I think Howard Griffith probably played center or forward. And then Lonnie played, and you were a guard, I guess. And the Payne boy played, I know. Did Collier play?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Jerry Collier was very, very good. Sam Warwick was really good. Sam, get that rebound and lead a fast break. Oh, he was good. Matter of fact, Sam played, Bain Surratt told me when he played at Furman.
Yeah.
That they went to Tennessee Tech to play the freshman team, and said Sam Warwick was starting for Tennessee Tech freshman.
That's
what he told me. Yeah. Sam was really good. He was a good athlete.
One guy that I left out when I was naming everybody is one of the best linemen in the state, was Paul Kaiser. Mm-hmm. And Paul actually won the Hunt Award that year for being West Virginia's best lineman in high school when he played center. And then he played the backfield sometimes, didn't he?
No, he played center just about the whole time. Yeah, now on defense he was tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now how did they called him Buster later. How did he get that name?
I have no idea. We always called him Butch.
Okay.
Butch Kaiser. And so Buster was probably his right name.
Yeah. Now, did he go to college and play ball anywhere?
He went to University of Tennessee. Me and Sam and Paul Kaiser, I went on track, on a full track scholarship, pole vaulted. And Kaiser was his freshman year. George Caffigo, one of the best players ever played at Oak Hill High School, was assistant coach at the University of Tennessee. And that's why the Mount Hope players got recruited at the University of Tennessee. Paul Kaiser and Sam Warwick. That was the connection. George Caffigo.
Yeah, he was the first pick in the draft in the NFL for Chicago Bears, and I remember reading about him. I never saw him play, but I was wondering how you guys ended up down in Tennessee, because that was a long ways from home too, wasn't it?
Oh yes.
Now, how long were you down in Tennessee?
Wasn't very long, about a year. Sam got me down there. I started out at West Virginia University on track scholarship, and I was only on part scholarship, and I done really well because Dave Tork held the world's record at 16 foot, and I wore his freshman record out at WVU. They didn't keep a lot of records, but everybody knew he was the best pole vaulter up there, and everybody knew what he jumped, and I broke his record. And I would send Sam Warwick clippings from our track when we had track meets at Pittsburgh, indoor meet, and I'd done quite well. I'd send the clippings to Sam because, I don't want to get anything that's illegal, but the track coach, I contacted him and wanted to come down there. And I'd send the clippings to Sam, and Sam would show it to the track coach. And Sam, the communication was through Sam, and he said, yes, he's interested in you. And the deal was I had to go a year and pay, transfer. Well, I didn't have the money. Or go to a junior college, get a degree, and I go down there, I'd be eligible right off the bat. So I went to Beckley College and got my degree and went straight to University of Tennessee.
Oh.
So I had a round trip to get there.
Did Blaine Tanner teach you how to pole vault?
No, Jack Shockey. I kind of picked up everything on my own and tried to research and find how to do it. Now, Gazette Relays back then was the biggest track meet in the state. They had several out-of-state teams come. And our coach, Blaine Tanner, had promised us that we were going to the Gazette Relays. And then for some reason, I don't know what, it could have been busing, they decided not to. Well, I hitchhiked to Charleston, and it was the old way, didn't have a turnpike. It was a long hitchhike. And when I got to the gate, the lady wasn't even going to let me in, and I didn't have money to pay. And the guy that was athletic director at Marshall back then, his dad was Hamrick.
Yeah.
Coach Hamrick happened to standing at the gate when I was trying to get in. The lady wasn't going to let me in. He said, you let that boy in. He coached at that time in high school.
Jim?
He was running the pole vault. So I got in, and I won first place, and got a lot of publicity. Headlines the next day was Boy Thumbs to Meet does good. And there was 3 guys in the meet, and everybody got down to the pole vault because Stonewall Jackson, Charleston, and there's me. And 3 were left in the pole vault, and determine on who won the track meet by 1 point.
Oh.
And I won it, and I don't know who got second. As soon as it was over, I had to run to the shower because Hamrick was smart enough to get O'Kill to wait on me, so I didn't have to thumb back home.
To get your ride.
But I had to thumb from O'Kill. That's a lot better than thumbing from Charleston the old way. So Mr. Hamrick was the reason I even got into pole vault. And I did get the headlines in the Charleston Gazette paper because Mr. Hamrick was telling everybody.
You know, I coached track a little bit there in junior high, and to get a pole vaulter, first thing I did, I'd try to find the craziest guy on the team, a gutsy guy. And then the second one, I'd put them guys up against the wall doing Chinese push-ups where your feet is up on the wall, and the one who could do the most Chinese was usually end up being my pole vaulter. One thing I wanted to point out, when you guys, after you graduated from Mount Hope too, Mount Hope played in the state finals 2 more years, 60 and 61, I think, in football. And when you got to Tennessee, Sammy ended up at Tennessee Tech. And how long did Kaiser stay down there?
Just 1 year.
1 year.
He went to Marshall. He wanted to play football, and he turned Marshall down. And because of that reason, Marshall washed their hands. He said no, and he went to Marshall, graduated.
Yeah. Now, you ended back at Tech. Did they have track there then?
No, they didn't. The record for the conference was 12 foot. And we warmed up on 12 foot at the University of Tennessee, and I went to Neil Bicey, and I didn't have money. And I said, Neil, I called him Coach. I said, if y'all could afford to buy me a pole, and I'll pick it out, a fiberglass pole, I'd like to pole vault. And they did have track in the conference.
Yeah.
Tech didn't participate in it. And he said, no, I think we'll just take a rain check on it. So that was fine. I didn't,
Yeah.
And I felt like I could win the conference easily because the record was 12 foot. And we did. I mean, we started out practice on 12 foot.
Yeah. Now, when you graduated from Tech, did you have a teaching degree or what?
Yes.
And what did you do when you first graduated?
When I was going to Tech, I was selling insurance, and I would drive to different counties and sell. And I was going to college at the same time, and I took kinesiology at Marshall University to be able to graduate on time because Tech offered it, but it was a different semester. And I'd had to wait another semester. So they gave me permission to take it at Marshall University. So I drove down, took kinesiology, and drive to Clay County. And it was rough. It was hard.
What insurance company was it?
It was Combined Insurance
Combined
Company,
Insurance?
Accident Insurance Company.
Now, somewhere around you met Jean sometime or another, didn't you?
Yeah.
Where did you meet her?
I would go to Little Beaver Lake. They'd have a dance record hop.
Was this in high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
In high schools when I met her. And we continued our connection by phone, and eventually we tied the knot and got married and been happy ever since.
Now, were you still in college when you got married?
Yes.
So you were selling insurance, and did you sell insurance until you started?
To start at the Y.
Really?
Right. It was a hard life. You were on the road 5 days a week, sometimes 6. You'd come home, spend a day or two, and just wasn't a good family life at all. And I was looking for something. Y came available, and I applied for it and interviewed and got the job. So.
And that was about 67, I guess?
I'm incompetent, and you're
somewhere
probably
along
right.
that line, yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back here in a second. But you will come back and talk with us, won't you?
Well, sure.
Okay. And we want to remind anyone that if you want to be on the show, you can email me at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we would glad to have you. Remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And this is Wayne Bennett saying God bless you.